They're taking screenshots of your meltdowns and laughing about them in group chats you'll never see. You think when someone makes you cry at work, they go home feeling guilty? Wrong. They're telling their spouse about it over dinner. That family member who always brings up your failures at gatherings? They're not being thoughtless. They're being strategic. Your neighbor who makes passive-aggressive comments about your lawn while you're clearly struggling with other things? They know exactly what those digs do to you. That friend who jokes about your dating life in front of the group? They're watching you deflate because it makes them feel better about their own problems. Here's what nobody tells you about showing emotional pain in your 30s, 40s, and beyond. People don't see it as authenticity anymore. They see it as weakness. And weakness, in the adult world, gets exploited faster than a data breach. You think you're being mature by expressing your feelings. They think you're being naive by showing your hand. And that gap in understanding, that's why you keep getting blindsided by people you trusted. But here's the really messed up part. The people who hurt you aren't even trying that hard. You're making it too easy. Every time you tear up during a difficult conversation, every time you can't hide your disappointment when plans change, every time your voice shakes when you're trying to be assertive, you're basically handing them a manual titled, How to Control This Person in 3 Easy Steps. Okay, how do some people turn getting attacked into getting ahead? How do they make their enemies regret ever starting a fight? I'll tell you exactly what Machiavelli figured out about power dynamics that you're still missing. When you show someone they can hurt you without consequences, you've just given them a hobby. And hobbies are things people do repeatedly for fun. So what's the fix? Here are the exact moves that will change everything. Step 1. Never show your entire hand. Look at the people you actually admire, the ones with real influence in your life. What do they all have in common? They don't overshare, they don't over-explain, and they definitely don't broadcast every emotional reaction they have. The people around you who constantly get walked on, they're always announcing their feelings. I'm so hurt that you didn't invite me. I always put everyone else first. I could never say no to someone who needs help. They might as well hand out instruction manuals titled, How to Manipulate Me for Dummies. Machiavelli would never do that. He'd help someone today and decline tomorrow with zero explanation. He'd be warm and supportive sometimes and completely unavailable other times. He'd share selectively, assist unpredictably, reveal himself strategically. From now on, do one kind thing and tell absolutely no one about it. Help someone without posting about it. Be there for a friend without reminding them later how much you did for them. Because the moment your goodness becomes your entire identity, it becomes your prison. Step 2. Stop defending your boundaries. Here's a mind-blowing concept that'll change your life. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your no. When someone asks why you can't cover their shift again, why you can't lend them money for the 3rd time this month, why you can't listen to their relationship drama for 2 hours on a Tuesday night, stop giving PowerPoint presentations justifying your position. Sorry, I can't is a complete sentence. The moment you start explaining, I'm really tired, or I have this other thing, you've opened negotiations. And when someone wants something from you, they'll negotiate like their life depends on it. They'll problem solve your excuses. You can sleep tomorrow. Your other thing can wait. This will only take a minute. Every defense you give weakens your position. Every explanation signals that with enough pressure, you'll eventually cave. Machiavelli wouldn't explain himself into a corner. He'd say no, maintain eye contact, and let the silence do the heavy lifting. Try it. It's terrifying at first, then strangely liberating. Step 3. Create controlled unpredictability. The most powerful people aren't cruel. They're inconsistent. Not in a crazy, unstable way, but in a you never quite know which version is showing up today way. Be warm and supportive sometimes. Be brief and businesslike other times. Answer texts quickly today. Take a day to respond tomorrow. Most people try to be 100% consistent in their emotional availability. I always answer within 5 minutes. I never say no to helping. I'm always the understanding one. And that's exactly why they get taken for granted. Machiavelli understood that humans don't value consistent access to anything. They value earned access. The advisor who's always available becomes furniture. The one who's sometimes unavailable becomes invaluable. This isn't about playing mind games. It's about breaking the patterns that have trained people to expect unlimited access to your emotional energy. Before we move further, do like and subscribe to the channel. Step 4. Master the power of non-reaction. When someone disrespects you, insults you, or tries to push your buttons, your instinct is to react immediately, to explain, to defend, to get angry, to make sure they know they hurt you. That reaction, it's exactly what they're fishing for. It tells them, I have emotional control over this person. I can make them dance whenever I want. Instead, try this. When someone's rude to you, just look at them for a beat longer than feels comfortable. When they make a dig at you, smile slightly like you know something they don't. When they try to push your boundaries, calmly disengage without any explanation. That calmness in the face of their chaos, it scares the hell out of people who are used to getting reactions out of others. Machiavelli knew that the strongest power move isn't explosive anger. It's unnerving composure. The kind that makes people think, wait, did that even affect them? What else can they handle without flinching? That's not just communication. That's domination, without raising your voice once. Let's talk about the actual psychology happening here, because once you understand it, you'll never see your interactions the same way again. When someone knows with absolute certainty that you'll always be there, always forgive, always help, always understand, something weird happens in their brain. You stop being a person with needs and start being a utility. Think about it. Do you feel deep gratitude every time you flip a light switch and electricity happens? Do you marvel at the miracle of running water each morning? No, because consistent accessibility kills appreciation. It's not personal, it's how our brains are wired. The same thing happens with your emotional availability. When your kindness, patience, and understanding become as reliable as Wi-Fi, people stop seeing them as gifts and start seeing them as baseline expectations. That's why chronically nice people get absolutely steamrolled. Your boss doesn't think twice about texting you at 9 p.m. because you've trained them that your time isn't really yours. Your friends flake last minute because you've demonstrated there are zero consequences. Your partner forgets important dates because you've established that your disappointment is temporary and your forgiveness is guaranteed. You're not just a good person in their eyes. You're a safety net, a backup plan, a resource to be tapped when needed and ignored when not. And here's the real kicker. When you finally hit your limit and try to establish boundaries, they act like you violated some sacred contract. But you're always cool with last-minute changes. Since when do you care about getting credit for ideas? Why are you being so difficult? It's not because they're evil. It's because you've accidentally taught them that your needs are optional while theirs are mandatory. So what does a threat look like in this context? Not someone who's mean or aggressive. A threat is simply someone whose reactions can't be perfectly predicted and whose emotional availability isn't unconditionally guaranteed. It's the coworker who sometimes stays late to help and sometimes leaves right at 5 p.m. without explanation. It's the friend who's incredibly supportive one day and completely unavailable the next. It's the partner who surprises you with thoughtfulness, then maintains healthy space without apology. That's the person everyone thinks about after interactions. Not because they're scared of them, but because they can't categorize them, can't take them for granted, can't predict their next move. And that uncertainty, that's the foundation of respect. All right, time for the actual moves. Not vague advice, but specific things you can do tomorrow that will change how people treat you within weeks. Habit 1. Never be the first to react. Next time someone says something slightly offensive, baits you with a controversial take, or subtly disrespects you, try this. Just wait. Don't jump to respond. Don't rush to correct them. Don't scramble to smooth things over. Take a beat. Blink slowly. Let the silence hang. Everyone else is racing to react, to defend, to counter, to please. And in that rush, They reveal exactly how easily they can be manipulated. But you're just observing, letting their energy bounce off your calm. That pause isn't you being slow. It's you taking the time to decide if this even deserves your energy. It's wild how uncomfortable this makes people. They expect immediate reactions because immediate reactions can be predicted and managed. Your pause suggests calculation, and that makes them nervous. Try it at your next meeting when someone interrupts you or takes credit for your idea. Instead of the usual frustrated but polite response, just look at them for a beat too long. No anger, no passive aggression, just assessment. Watch how quickly they get unsettled when they can't immediately gauge if you're angry, if you'll challenge them, or if you even noticed. That uncertainty? That's power. Habit 2, talk less, leave first. This one's deceptively simple, but requires actual discipline. Speak about 30% less than you normally would and leave social situations about 20% earlier than usual. Don't announce it. Don't make a big deal about going. Just say less and exit before things start winding down naturally. What happens is fascinating. Speaking less automatically adds weight to what you do say. People lean in a little. They listen more carefully. They don't interrupt as quickly because your words feel more valuable through their relative scarcity. Leaving early creates a subtle impression that your time follows different rules, that you have places to be, people to see, things that matter waiting for you. Again, this isn't about being rude. Thank the host. Say your goodbyes. But don't feel obligated to stay until the bitter end of every social interaction. Next time you're at dinner and the check has been paid, be the second or third person to leave, not the last. At work, make your points concisely rather than over-explaining. In group chats, respond to 70% of messages instead of every single one. These small adjustments send a powerful signal. Your presence isn't guaranteed. It's a choice you're actively making. Habit 3, create absence that gets noticed. Here's something counterintuitive. The most influential people aren't those who are always around. They're those whose absence creates a noticeable shift in energy. Start practicing strategic withdrawal from places where you're typically overavailable. Skip one social event you normally attend. Don't respond in the group chat for a day. Take a lunch break alone instead of always eating with coworkers. Decline a meeting where you're not absolutely needed. The goal isn't to disappear completely. It's to create just enough absence that people notice the difference when you're not there. Think of the friend who comes to everything versus the one who shows up selectively. Which one's arrival actually changes the energy of the room? Which one's opinion carries more weight? This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about demonstrating through your actions that your presence isn't a default setting. It's a deliberate choice that can be withdrawn. Because when people start wondering where you are rather than just expecting you to be there, they've begun to see your presence as valuable rather than automatic. Habit 4, stop over-explaining everything. Pay attention to your language patterns. Do you catch yourself saying things like, sorry to bother you, but I was just thinking maybe we could, or I know this is probably stupid, but, or I don't want to be difficult, but these verbal habits are goodness signaling, and they're killing your credibility. Start practicing minimalist communication. If you change your mind about something, simply say, I've reconsidered. Not, I'm so sorry, but I was thinking about it more and realized that actually. If you can't make an event, try, I won't be able to make it. Not, I feel terrible, but my cousin's roommate's dog is having surgery, and I promised months ago that. This habit is particularly tough for chronically nice people because it feels rude. It's not. It's respectful of both your time and theirs. It signals that you trust them to handle straightforward communication without needing to be emotionally cushioned. Machiavelli would never send a paragraph explaining why he couldn't attend a function. He'd send 3 words, unavailable that evening. And somehow, that brief response would carry more weight than your essay-length apology ever could. Look, there's a razor-thin line between becoming more respected and becoming a complete jerk. We need to talk about that line because Machiavelli wasn't suggesting you turn into some cartoon villain. The goal isn't to be feared in the "I think that person might key my car" way. It's to be respected in the "I should probably think twice before wasting their time" way. The magic happens in the tension between your capacity for goodness and your willingness to withhold it. Let me break this down. If people only fear you, they'll obey you to your face and sabotage you behind your back. They'll nod along in meetings while secretly applying for jobs at your competitor. They'll agree with your suggestions while texting their friends about what a nightmare you are. Fear without respect breeds compliance on the surface and rebellion underneath. Not exactly a win. But here's where most people screw up in the other direction. If people only like you but don't respect you, they'll praise you to your face while completely ignoring your boundaries. They'll call you such a good friend while canceling plans last minute. They'll appreciate your team player attitude while dumping their work on you. So what's the solution? Balance tension. It looks like this. You're kind, but not predictably so. You're helpful, but selectively. You're forgiving, but not automatically. You're pleasant to be around, but you don't need everyone to like you all the time. In practice, this means sometimes you bring coffee for the team, other times you focus on your own work without explanation. Sometimes you stay late to help, other times you leave precisely at 5 p.m. Sometimes you're warm and engaging at social events, other times you're quiet and observant. This inconsistency isn't you being moody or fake. It's you being human instead of a function. A person with changing priorities instead of a vending machine of goodness that operates the same way every time someone puts in a request. The goal is simple. When you walk into a room, people should feel a subtle shift in energy. Not because they're afraid of you, but because they can't quite categorize you. You might be charming today. You might be all business. You might notice their new haircut, or you might be completely focused elsewhere. That uncertainty makes you memorable in a way that constant people-pleasing never will. As Machiavelli understood centuries ago, lasting influence doesn't come from being feared instead of respected. It comes from being respected enough that people fear losing your good opinion. Not your kindness, not your help, not your forgiveness, but your genuine respect for them. And paradoxically, that only happens when they realize they need to earn it. Eventually, you reach a point where all of this stops being a strategy and simply becomes who you are. That's when things get really interesting. You're no longer consciously thinking, should I respond to this text now or later? Or should I help with this project or set a boundary? Your natural instinct shifts from automatic yes to thoughtful consideration. This is what separates temporary tactics from lasting transformation. The person who's faking selective availability eventually slips back into people-pleasing. But the person who genuinely values their own time and energy naturally becomes more discerning about where they invest it. And here's what happens. People start treating you differently without you having to do anything specific. They text with actual substance instead of WYD. They come prepared to meetings with you rather than winging it. They follow through on commitments because they've noticed you remember what they promise. They ask before assuming you'll help, not because you've threatened them or played mind games, but because you've subtly shifted the entire dynamic of how people interact with you. This is what Machiavelli was really getting at. His genius wasn't in teaching princes to be feared through cruelty. It was in showing them how to be respected through selective engagement. How to be remembered not as someone who demanded attention, but as someone whose presence carried weight even when they weren't in the room. That's the ultimate goal, to become someone who doesn't have to demand respect because your absence is felt more strongly than most people's presence. Think about the most influential people you know. They're not the loudest. They're not begging for attention. They're the ones who walk into a room and everyone subtly adjusts their behavior. People speak more clearly, sit up straighter, bring their A game. And when they're not there, people still consider what they might think, what they might say, how they might respond. That's not manipulation. That's genuine impact. The world is full of good people who are completely forgettable. Your challenge is to become good in a way that's impossible to ignore. Not through grand gestures or constant availability, but through something much more powerful, the selective application of your attention, your approval, and your presence. Because in the end, Machiavelli's most profound insight wasn't about fear at all. It was about scarcity. What's everywhere is valued nowhere. What's selective becomes essential. So ask yourself, what kind of strong do you want to be? The kind that breaks visibly every time someone hurts you, or the kind that absorbs hits silently and somehow comes out ahead? The kind that shows every wound and wonders why people keep targeting the same spots, or the kind that keeps people guessing about what actually affects them? The choice was always yours. You just didn't realize it until now. But here's what happens when you finally understand this game. When someone tries to hurt you and sees nothing, no tears, no anger, no visible reaction, something shifts in their brain. They start questioning themselves instead of targeting you. Did that even register? Are they tougher than I thought? What else are they capable of handling? That uncertainty becomes your armor. Not because you're actually unfeeling, but because you've learned to control who gets to see your feelings and when. The person who used to make cutting remarks about your appearance, they stop when their comments land in silence instead of visible hurt. The boss who used to pile extra work on you because you seemed eager to please, they start treating you like someone whose time has value when you stop jumping at every request. Your ex who kept coming back because they knew you'd always take them back, they lose interest when they realize you've moved on emotionally, not just physically. This isn't about becoming cold or heartless. It's about becoming strategic with something precious, your emotional reactions. You still feel everything. You just don't broadcast it to people who've proven they'll use that information against you. You save your vulnerability for people who've earned it. You save your tears for people who actually care about stopping them. You save your anger for situations where it might actually change something. And everyone else? They get the version of you that's pleasant but unpredictable, helpful but not guaranteed, present but not desperate to be needed. That's when you realize the real power wasn't in showing them how much they could hurt you. It was in showing them how little they actually mattered. Not through cruelty, but through indifference. Not through revenge, but through moving on so completely that their attempts to hurt you feel like throwing rocks at a mountain. The mountain doesn't fight back. It doesn't need to. It just stands there, unmoved, while the person throwing rocks eventually gets tired and walks away. That's the kind of strength Machiavelli was really talking about. Not the strength to hurt others, but the strength to remain unbroken when others try to hurt you. The strength to make your peace so unshakable that other people's chaos can't disturb it. And once you have that, you'll wonder why you ever thought showing your pain was the brave thing to do. When you finally master this, something beautiful happens. You stop being afraid of getting hurt because you know you can handle it without falling apart. And the people who used to drain your energy either learn to treat you with respect or naturally drift away from your life. That's Machiavelli's ultimate lesson. True power isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself so completely that others can't control you. And your reaction is the only thing they can actually control. Everything else is yours.